that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome back. I'm doing better now. It is 4 a.m. in the morning though, but I'm doing better now. Today I have for you Assail by Ian C Esslemont, the final novel in the novels of the Malazan Empire, and the final novel out of the 16 of the events surrounding this entire time period of Malazan. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think I still like Orb Scepter Throne, Blood and Bone, and Stone Wielder the most out of these books, but I have fun with all of them. The story here is we have a couple people, whether it be Kyle or the Crimson Guard, or Fisher, because he's back, a new Tistiandi, all coming to Assail because Assail is this unknown continent, this unknown region, rumored to have all this treasure, wealth, so of course people want it, much like in California, back in the 30s and stuff, or not 30s, earlier than that, we had the whole gold rush mine thing, everybody coming over here to get gold. That was a big thing back in the day. But then also, you have a character we have not seen since Memories of Ice. You thought her story was over? No, we have Silver Fox, or Tattersail, or Nightchill, or Bellerden. We have Silver Fox back after so many books and many years, chronologically speaking, as we deal with, we deal with the aftermath of the crippled god, while also dealing with the continued lingering thing of the Talanamas, the Jagat, the Fulcral Sail, and the Tistiandi. And all that comes to a head in this book. And it's really good. I'd say my only issue, and I know it's entirely subjective, but pacing, the last 100 pages really fly by, and I feel like, the first half really feels to me like there's a lot of meandering. As happy as I am to see Silver Fox, I will say, without getting into spoilers, a lot of her stuff kind of comes at the end of chapters, and it's usually really short, and it's hey, don't forget, Silver Fox is in this story. Don't forget, Silver Fox is here. Silver Fox is here. But that's probably my biggest gripe is just it feels yeah, everybody's walking around talking, doing stuff. I mean, it's all building to a point. I will say, after finishing it, I appreciate all of it, much like I do with Erickson's works and stuff. But it just felt a bit meandering at times. But I always feel that on the first read of a lot of these books. Whereas in hindsight, Dead House Gates, phenomenal. I used to, when I first talked about that book, it was much lower in my rankings, but it's gone up so much more. And this story, I feel, is not only a good ending to the novels of the Malazan Empire, but it as an entire novel, a great epilogue to the Malazan Book of the Fallen as a whole. Because it follows similar beats and similar themes, but also not exactly the same, as opposed to themes of compassion and all that. This is more about being human, even though not all the characters are human, and being willing to show your emotions, your feelings, your passions to others. And there is that recurrent theme of forgiveness and everything, and I think it works really well, and it provides a hopeful future at the end of it all, um, which God is not willing. Will that remain the case? I mean, probably not. If you know history is anything to go by, you know things eventually go sour. But the promise of hope is there, and even if the God is not willing may change some things, I hope that the Talanamas and all these people continue to have a certain peace, at least for a while. I mean, I think that just works well. But the series as a whole, now that we're talking about it non-spoiler wise, I I gotta say the Crimson Guard, kind of the namesake of this whole series after Night of Knives, I like them, but I have not felt a deep connection to them for any of them, outside of maybe Shimmer and Kyle, who was even a part of the Crimson Guard by this point. But I just, there's been so many books with these characters, and I just feel like I still don't really give a damn. So I like the stories with them in it, but as for them themselves, I'm not invested in them. Not like with the Bone Hunters or their predecessor, the Bridge Burners. They're just kind of there and they help propel the plot, but I'm not particularly in love with any of them. Kaz is cool, but I just don't care about the faction as a whole. But there are some great parallels here with them being avowed and them wanting the revenge on, the Empire, which, the Tlanamas are how they are because they made a vow to kill all the Jaghut. So there is very much that parallel in mind, and it works really well. Um, I think the novels of the Malazan Empire really help flesh out the world, you know, um, whether it be through characters that kind of get left behind by Erickson or by fleshing out continents that we never even got to see in Malazan Book of the Fallen. I think it just makes this world so much more richer and so much bigger than we ever thought, while also providing some great storytelling in of itself because Ian C Esslemont is absolutely fantastic. Um, my gripes aside, and I think, you know, I've looked it up. I've looked up reviews of this book specifically before I did this review, and there's a couple, but there's not a lot on YouTube. Um, Not even a lot of reviews, like when I looked it up on Google, like for like blogs and stuff. Not a ton, but these novels get slept on, and they really shouldn't. They are equal to the Malazan Book of the Fallen. They may not, you may personally feel they don't hit the same things necessarily, but it doesn't have to. Ian C. Esslemont is his own writer, but it also expands the universe, makes it something greater as a whole. And I think that's something to be said there. I mean, Night of Knives was very short, very sweet, very to the point, and gave us the immediate backstory on, you know, the start of Guardians of the Moon. Crimson Guard explains so many things from Lassine's death to the rise of Malik Rel to a lot of the heroes that came before that helped give rise to the Malazan Empire, to Stonewielder, which took us to an entirely new place but gave us this fascinating story that was really great, um, to Orb Scepter Throne, which kind of served as a second parter to Toll the Hounds and was a nice story there and gave us a little bit more on the Morinth and the what are they? I'm bubbling on the name right now. The oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The I can't remember right now. It's too early. I apologize, but you know who else it focuses on. Oh, the Segula. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Um, to Blood and Bone, which again took us to a new continent, while also indirectly giving us more on Calor, which is really cool, while also being indirectly what helped the ending of the Crimson, what helped the ending of the Crippled God, with what goes on in that book. So, all that to say, really great stuff here, And I'm so glad I read the Esslemont stuff. I think you're really missing out if you don't. It's definitely worth your time. I agree it doesn't necessarily emotionally hit me as powerfully as um, Erickson stuff, but that's entirely subjective. For somebody else, this may entirely hit the same, maybe even hit harder. I don't know, but all I know is that I'm glad I've read these. It wasn't a way. There were times where I've read like Star Wars Expanded Universe for books where I felt like I wasted my time. That I spent money, my hard-earned money, and on my break, I was still working because I've been reading a really bad book, you know? And I never felt that with any of these stories. So, um, all the power to it. I'm going to get into spoilers now. If you haven't read this book, it's time for you to go. But read it. Read it. Read the entire novels in the Malazan Empire. Read all of Erickson's work. Just stay in this world for as long as possible, because it is a world worth diving into. Alrighty. Alrighty. So, for whatever dates are worth considering, history is fickle. It says 33,000 years, 33,421 years before Burn Sleep. We meet this character Utol and a Jagad lady, which I believe comes back in the end. We then jump to 6,000 years before Burn Sleep, and we follow this character named Shalt Legar of the Ife Talanamas. And then we go to present day and meet back up with Kyle, which it's always good to see Kyle. We have many people, as I said before in the non-spoiler, heading toward Assail. We get reintroduced to Tattersail, which is really cool. She's with the Talanamas here, who, we haven't seen her since Memories of Ice, so that was a big shock. Silver Fox is distraught because of the failings of the Talanamas. They have not found forgiveness in their heart yet. They're still kind of aimless and wandering and unable to have that peace. We meet some new characters, Teal, Mail, and Engulf. And they're all Lethari. And Lethari are all the capitalist people, as we learned from Midnight Tides, and of course, Reaper's Gale. And so they want the supposed money on Assail. That's what they're there for. We get reintroduced to Fisher, and he meets up with a Tistiandi with amnesia. I wrote this note a little bit later, but I'm going to tell it now, because Fisher doesn't know who he is, and neither does the Tistiandi. They name him Jethus for this book. We also meet some characters named Cartharian, who used to be a legendary captain. We also have Hagen Vontail Blueshield. We also meet Tivor, or Tyver Jindarin, who is a mortal sort of Tog. Of course, though, it's more an honorary title than anything else, because at this point in time, this is set after the coupled god, so most of the gods, after the events of the coupled god, are no longer playing active roles in the world of mortals. They are quiet, they are hidden, they are not showing themselves as brazenly as they did in the past. So it then also begs an interesting question of faith and what that means in a world where you have no concrete evidence because you cannot see them, you cannot talk to them like they used to, which, is most religious people on earth. They haven't had a actual physical conversation with God. They simply believe. What was the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie? I'm going to give some words of wisdom from the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie. The movie where Santa Claus falls off the roof, dies, and then some random dad puts on the suit and becomes Santa? Christmas classic. But seeing isn't believing. Believing is seeing. Because somebody could walk on water tomorrow, But if you don't want to believe a God exists, you can chop that away as, wow, that's some crazy technology that they got on those sandals, because that's more plausible and more believable than the idea of a God. You know. Anyway, we're gonna get off that topic, but I do think it's an interesting section of the book to deal with. Okay. There's just a little bit of a like world building or kind of like history here that's mentioned. It's just kind of more about the Malazan Empire before the series started. For Erickson or Esslemont. And they mentioned this family, Anklos, who lived in 7 cities, and they originally hired Kaladin Brood to cause problems, um, with the Malazan Empire, because this is before it became a rebellion. There wasn't always a rebellion. That kind of came later. But I thought that was interesting. But Anklos Doran, who is one of those families, is now a king in exile. Now, I gotta tell you, Iron Bars is cool. He's been cool. He was cool in Erickson books. He's been cool here. I've never felt like the strongest attachment to the character. I always thought he was cool, but nothing went beyond that. Shimmer has a lot of interesting moments throughout these books. But I gotta tell you, for someone who wasn't like super heavily invested in these two characters, they gave me one of the, I don't know, just it was a very engaging love scene between the two of them. They kind of confess their love for one another, and it's just, I don't know. I don't even care about these people, but it was a really engaging scene. I don't know if it's just me. It could be just me. Maybe I'm insane. Maybe I really am just really stupid, but I really enjoyed the scene. I don't know what it was about it, but like usually I will check my phone to see the time like real quick, like every for like 6 pages. I'll just check the time. I don't know, it's a weird habit. Um, but here, I just read the whole chat. I just read that whole section through without even thinking about it. Just it was great. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, basically Shimmer, you Shimmer and Iron Bars get it down, um, and Iron Bars confesses his love for her, and oh, it was great. It was great. We also get reintroduced to Kalava, who of course was in the Book of the Fallen, and she is hanging out with Silver Fox. Now, this is interesting. I don't know if this is necessarily true, but so white hair marks you as an alien, like being able to turn into like a dragon and everything. So, because Animander has white hair, but does that mean not every Tisty Andy has white hair? Because I never thought about it like that. Also, is Jethys like a reincarnation of Rake, or just someone taking on the kind of mantle? But I guess we'll get there very soon. We also meet King Runal the Bastard. That's a fun character. I don't really have much to say, but their scenes are entertaining. Um, Pure or native stand on the backs of forgotten predecessors. This is an interesting talk because, Esslemont, Erickson, both not archaeologists, anthropologists, I think, right? I think so. If I'm incorrect, please don't crucify me like in 7 Cities. I apologize. Um, but there is, this whole thing, you know, uh, people thinking that they were the first ones to live somewhere, which is usually not true. But it is interesting to think about because, there are predecessors upon predecessors upon predecessors upon, even if you didn't colonize or take over a place, you may find a place that's empty. But in the ancient past, there may have been people that lived there. You just don't know. You may not be the originator of lived in place. Most likely, you're actually not. So it's an interesting thought to come by. there's also this interesting moment between Fisher and Jethys, where Jethys is basically like, you think everything is preordained? And Fisher says, no, I think we follow our natures, and that we do it to ourselves. And I think that was a great, interesting quote there. Or I was paraphrasing, but Fisher, Jethys, and Kyle meet up, so there's convergence of plot lines. I really have had nothing to say about Kyle and his story. I like Kyle. He's kind of just walking around. He has that sword that I also have never mentioned. This white sword. He's kind of like the sword of light, or sort of the instead of being like Anamander Reiko as a dark sword. Which I got by Osric. In case I didn't mention that, which I'm almost positive I didn't for whatever reason. So yeah, it's from Osric. But yeah, Kyle's just kind of walking around doing things up until like this, because this is what I mean about like kind of like the meandering pace. Because the actual like no like on your first read, like no shot, like knowing like what is supposed to happen exactly in this plot is kind of impossible. Because I feel like like with let's just take Deadhouse Gates again. If you go to the second book, like even if I didn't know the destination of where the story was going, I got the vibe, I got the theme immediately. I don't feel like I caught on to the themes of this book early on, up until like the middle point and the end, where it was like crystal clear, obvious. But before that, I really had no idea exactly where we were going. So I feel like Kyle's walking around, stuff's happening to him. He's hanging out with some other characters, stuff's happening up until he meets with Fisher, and that's where things kind of like pick up. But that's what I'm saying. Like I just don't have anything to really say about it. So I'm just he was around though. So interesting enough, all the inhabitants of Assail here, human or otherwise, seem to have some Jagat blood in them, and the Tilana Mass want wrath on them. A big revelation we learn at the end of this is that Kyle is a child of Jagat Animas. So that's pretty cool. So he is, that was a crazy revelation to me. It was a big one, and also makes it the stakes kind of raised for a second, because obviously Telanamas don't like Jagat blood at all. So, but there is a sort of peace to last across all time, or seemingly, hopefully, where the Jagat, the Amas, the Forkroll Assail, because they kind of show up at the end for a little bit, are all meant to kind of, and the Andy, the Tisti Andy, we're all meant to declare a peace among one another as representatives to last, which again I think works for the overarching theme of both series of compassion, forgiveness, empathy, and I think it works greatly as an epilogue. If you read this after the Crippled God, I think it just fits really well there, especially with all the Talana Mass stuff we got in Dust of Dreams and the Crippled God. I think it works really well. We do hear sadly that the Kachin Shemel kind of like dying out because of the events of those books, and that is sad. But yeah, there is supposedly a peace that will last. We shall see. But we also learn about Jethys's. He's supposed to be the new Son of Darkness, the new sword. But he gets the sword from the Forkroll Assail, which is a sword of bone, which I thought was interesting. Will we ever meet this character again? I'm under the strict impression we probably never will see Jethys again. So, but yeah, that's it for my Assail review. Next time we talk about Malazan, we'll be going to the far past to talk about Forge of Darkness by Steven Erikson. But just want to say, Thank you all for watching my Malazan Book of the Fallen series. Thank you all for, especially because I feel like I fumbled so hard on all these reviews of the novels in Malazan Empire. And if you stuck around through all that, you are a real one, and I appreciate you, and I love you. If I never properly expressed it, I really enjoy this series immensely by Esslemont. I really, really do. And I really enjoy the journey I've been on with it. But we're not done yet. We got more to go. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who comments or says something. I love talking about this stuff. I love being in this world. So, till the ancient past, I'll see you at Forge of Darkness. Bye-bye.